Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Bob Pompeani with you tonight. We have a lot to get into. John Rahm had to withdraw because of a COVID test. He led by 6 shots. We'll talk about that protocol. We'll also get into the Steelers. At OTAs, Ben Roethlisberger spoke this week. Had some interesting things to say. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the NHL specific to the Penguins. Brian Burke spoke. Ron Hextall spoke. We'll talk about what they think of the future of this core group, and we'll also get into Mark Scheifele's hit. And here to debate, we got 2 of the best in the business, Josh Yohe, who covers the Penguins and does a great job for The Athletic, and Chris Mueller, part of the PM team. Pony and Mueller every day, 2 to 6 on 93.7 The Fan. All right, so Josh, let's get right into this. Brian Burke had a lot of things to say, and while he did say that the identity of this team is still skill and speed, he said they got to get ugly. So how do you get ugly in one off season?
I think the Penguins can make an addition or 2 to add some more physicality and some more size to this group. But this is something that is going to progress over time. And here's the problem. Players like Tom Wilson, I know everyone hates Tom Wilson, but they'd love him if he played here. Josh Anderson, big power forwards like that. They have never been more in demand than they are right now. Everybody wants one of those guys, including the Penguins. But to get one of those guys, you might have to give up a Jake Gensel or a Brian Rust, or prospects that you don't already have. So I think they'll make a move or 2, and I know Burke wants that. But the fact of the matter is you can't do it right away. You can't completely change the complexion of your team in one offseason. That's a really difficult thing to do. And oh, by the way, this is still a really good team. This was a team that was betrayed by its goaltending. They were the 6th best team in the National Hockey League this season. Could they use size? Sure. Do they need to completely revamp everything? I don't think so.
I'm with you, Josh, on that last part. I think it would be an overreaction to Tristan Jarry completely puking on himself, melting down in this series to completely overhaul and revamp your roster. It is a pretty good roster, even though its core pieces are obviously getting up there in years. I mean, Brian Burke said he didn't like Jarry's Game 1 and Game 5. I'd add Game 6 into there as far as games where the Penguins carried play for stretches and probably should have won at least 2 of those 3. So I think it would be an overreaction to just say, well, we're going to throw everything out here because we lost this series. I will say they did in one offseason completely reshape the way their forward group kind of thought when they traded James Neal for Patrick Hornquist. That was the rare hockey trade that worked out really well for both sides, especially the Penguins, of course, because Hornquist got the cup-winning goal in 2017. But I would say that, like you said, those guys are in demand now. And Hornquist was really just a 6-foot guy who played like a maniac, right? I mean, the true big power forwards are unattainable. You'd have to give up a Jake Gensel. And unlike when you made the Neal for Hornquist deal, your 2 big-time centers and your ace defensemen aren't in their late or mid-20s anymore to pick up the extra slack. These guys are all in their 30s, and that makes this kind of proposition even more challenging.
Yeah, but it's interesting you mentioned Jake Gensel, because I would think he'd be one of the guys, if you're going to do something, and quite frankly, Josh, if they're going to do something, they have to give up something of significance. I think he would be probably one of the guys that would be in demand in that regard. Do you see a scenario where they would trade him if they can get the kind of return they want?
It's conceivable. I mean, Gensel and Rust are the 2 guys that you can trade and get something very much in return. I know a lot of people were talking about Gensel. Rust is the guy that I wonder about more. He has 1 year left on his contract. He's a great player. I have all the respect in the world for him. But he's never going to get better than he is right now. I mean, he gets everything out of his body that he has. He turns 30 next year. He's going to command a contract probably between $5 and $6 million a year. I don't know if you really want to give Rust that much money well into his 30s. It might make more sense to trade him. But would I trade a Gensel or a Rust? It depends on what you're getting back. I don't think I would trade them for some hulking power forward, because I just don't think it can happen. Now, would I include them in a package if I could get a big-time goaltender, a John Gibson or somebody like that? Yeah, I probably would at that point. Watch the playoffs right now. You think goaltending's important? It certainly is.
I don't know if I would be making any kind of trade for a goalie that didn't involve just begging the Seattle Kraken to take Tristan Jarry off the Penguins' hands. I think outside of Vasilevsky, I know Tuukka Rask has been very good for a very long time, but I think there's really only a handful, 2 or 3 trustworthy goalies year after year who play at an elite level. As far as a hypothetical Gensel deal, I mean, we all think here that he's a bargain because he scores goals, which is still the most important thing in the NHL. Teams love guys that can finish. I would apply the same thing Josh said about Russ to Gensel. I don't think Jake Gensel will ever be better than he is here, unless he ends up on like Connor McDavid's wing or something like that. So you've got a guy who's got a team-friendly contract, who's still got some time left, and who has a naturally, in-demand quality about him. He puts the puck in the net. He's probably going to get you the bigger return. But I think the pain on the Penguins' end in that trade would be too much for them to bear.
Well, also on the Cook and Joe show this week, Brian Burke had some interesting things to say about the core, because a lot of people believe they're going to be back. To me, they should be back. I think Letang is playing really good hockey, and Malkin was injured, as we know. He had the surgery. However, Josh, he did say that Mario Lemieux and ownership have not given them any edict about what to do with those guys. Do you believe that? And if so, do you think maybe there still could be a trade for one of those two? I'm talking Letang and Malkin.
Well, I think we might have a split decision here. Chris Letang had a really good season, and we know the condition that he keeps himself in. I think it's pretty clear he can still be, at worst, a very good top four defenseman for 2 or 3 more years. I believe they will give him an extension this summer. The real question is Evgeny Malkin. Number one, he's hurt, and from what I've heard, he's going to miss a significant chunk of next season. That's what the Penguins expect. This is a major injury he's dealing with. He only has 1 year left on his deal, as we know. And he's not the player he was 4 or 5 years ago. Not even close. He's still pretty good. What do you do with him? I think it would be crazy to give him a contract extension this summer. You don't know how he's going to respond from that knee injury. So he's the issue. To me, Letang, you absolutely bring back, especially when you consider the way John Marino regressed this season. I don't think it's any lock that he's the heir apparent to Chris Letang. Letang comes back for sure. I don't think either one gets traded, but I definitely wonder if Evgeny Malkin sees a new contract.
Well, I'm not going to try to start a fight between colleagues here, but I think Rob Rossi said on the PM team this past week that people are going to be shocked by how reasonable Malkin's salary demands are in a hypothetical next contract, that he understands it can't be close to the number that he's currently getting. Here's why I wouldn't trade either one of them, especially not Malkin. The value for each guy is pretty low right now. When you have 1 year left on a deal, what team's going to give up a king's ransom to bring in a guy that they would then have to re-sign to a new potentially blockbuster deal? I guess what the Penguins probably are going to do here, I would think, is give Letang that extension, see how Malkin goes this year, and then see if he wants to keep going. But the one thing I'll say philosophically here, if this franchise really wants to be great long-term or give itself the best chance at it, it can't be the one that just clings to stars for as long as humanly possible. Eventually, you have to make a move that might hurt emotionally if it becomes, obvious that you should do so in order to secure some better long-term future. The Penguins cannot fall into the trap of being, well, we're the Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang Penguins. That's how we'll always be, because they'll find themselves where the Detroit Red Wings are if they do that. Or
the Kings, or any of those teams. That's a good point. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to keep it to hockey, talk about Mark Scheifele of Winnipeg. Got a 4-game suspension. Did the punishment fit the crime? That's when we come back. We're right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.